And joining me today on this very special edition of the British Baseball Podcast, the baseball family would like to welcome back Andy Brown, the fantastic artist. He's working on the Negro Baseball League charity fundraiser for the museum. Andy, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, Matt. Very busy. It's been a busy, hectic week and a lot more before that, planning it and getting everything together for the piece of work behind me here.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. Oh, it's coming on nicely, that.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Today was Ray Dandridge. So I've just got Ray Dandridge down here in the bottom left. So that's 5 players in. We've still got 4 more to go and 4 more to fit in. So it's, as ever with this sort of work, it's, yeah, you don't know what's coming next because I don't know who the next player is going to be. So it's just a matter of trying to piece it together and try to make it compositionally make some sense, technically make some sense, and to hopefully reflect the history and the stories of these gentlemen.
Yeah, I've got a question that I want to ask you in relation to actually. But before I do that, for people that haven't heard our episode before, like early in the year, Andy was a guest when he spoke about his adventures across America when he famously painted all the baseball stadiums live. So that's pretty much what you're famous for, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm probably most renowned for. But as you know, the pandemic has put a stop to my ballpark painting. So I've been in the UK and kind of had to alter things a little bit. So I've been doing more studio-based stuff. So I've turned my parents' hut in the garden into my studio, and I'm working here now.
Yeah, it's a nice little tour that you gave us before of the hut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's bigger than my house that I used to live in. So why is it, Andy, that you do what you do? How do you get involved in art?
I don't think you get involved. I think it's involved in you. That's how it was for me. I feel like from an early age, it was my thing and my greatest interest, and it's just always been that way. You know, I've always painted, always drawn. I guess I've always had an ability there. So, and I've worked on that, and that's been my life really. And you know, I spent 20 years, just under 20 years teaching art. 10 years overseas in South Korea, which is where I kind of learned about baseball and got into baseball, and started painting the ballparks. And yeah, it's just a lifelong fascination, lifelong passion, really.
Yeah, is this the third piece that you've done that's like that behind you? You did the Yankees one and the Dodgers piece.
I've done three dream teams prior to this one. So I did an all-time, because with the lockdown, when I first got back down here and the lockdown came into effect, I had to find something to do really, and I started to think, well, it'd be cool using Twitter and I like the idea that in sport everyone's got, you know, their own teams, they've got their own biases, you know, your favorite player, you know, everyone has their own favorite player in whatever sport you follow, and it might be because, you know, you were 8 years old at the time, so you thought that guy was the coolest guy or the coolest player on the team. It might be that they've done something really historic or really groundbreaking. So I always find that's quite interesting, that debate that we can have about who was the greatest. What does that really mean? And then of course you have all the things to do with people's flaws and the character traits, where you know, our heroes and what that really means. So I started doing an all-time dream team where I got people on Twitter to suggest who they thought was the best first baseman, second baseman, and so on, and then put them into polls, and then people were voting for them, and whoever won the poll would go onto the canvas. So I did an all-time dream team, a Dodgers one, a Yankees one, and then this is the Negro League one, which I've had in my mind for quite a while. Since I started doing it, I thought, oh, it'd be kind of cool to do a Negro League dream team. But this Negro League Baseball Museum's event that's just come up this October was a perfect opportunity. Everything that I kind of wanted to try and do with this it's all just come around. So it's been absolutely fantastic, an incredible experience so far.
Yeah, you've got a really unique take on how you're creating this piece as well, aren't you? Because I know for myself, my knowledge on the Negro Leagues players and the actual league itself is not that great, but you've come up with a really clever way of helping people pick their players this time. It's not just a Twitter poll. You've actually got some experts in to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you think about that one?
Well, it was more for it was in some ways for my benefit as well. I feel like You know, we all know as baseball fans, I feel like we all know a few players from the Negro Leagues, and we know like the very best, or the ones with the best nicknames or wherever it is. But we know just a few, and I feel like, and we talked about in the discussions that I've had, we don't really know about the second best shortstop or the third best shortstop, or you know, the in between players. And I feel like there's a lot that needs to be talked about there, because you know the top players were very, very, very good. But as I found out in the panel of discussions that I've had with the people, I've been talking to authors about the Negro Leagues, Sabr, Negro League committee members. Two of the people on the panel that I've been talking to were responsible for the inductions at the Hall of Fame in 2006, the last set of inductions for the Negro League players into the Hall of Fame. So these people really know, you know, the histories, and they really know all about the Negro League. So it's been really interesting for me to talk to them about all the players, but the suggested players, and for them to present the cases for each player and why that player was so great. And you know, there's a huge amount to it. It's incredible, and that's it's from my understanding, but hopefully other people can see the videos and see the discussions and learn a little bit more themselves. And I feel like hopefully just broaden the history and broaden the knowledge. Having taught art for, like I say, just under 20 years, you know, I know the power of a painting and what that can teach and what that can do for people. So there's all those things in it there.
Yeah, and the really good thing about the interviews that you had as well is that it will outlast the project that we're doing, because there's
Absolutely,
so much in there and discussions and about these incredible athletes. Yeah, so it will stand the test of time. So it's kind of like a piece of art in itself.
It's a really neat way of doing it, and like you say, yeah, I mean the polls will be done, the dream team painting, this one will be done, but the actual discussions will be there, and also the three people I've got discussing their expertise is superb. So it's been incredible to have them on board, and you know, giving me their expertise and their time and sharing that with us all, really.
Yeah. Can you talk us then through the process when it comes to creating this piece? I know we touched on a bit at the start of the video. When it comes down to this, do you have it in your head, like you've already pre-selected the players you're going to vote for?
Yes.
But how do you sort of envision it on the camera? Have you already got like scenarios played out in your head? So if player 1 gets selected with player 2 and player 3, so like a really crazy like math equation.
No, my brain can't think that far ahead. I mean, that'd be fantastic, but no, definitely not. I guess, you know, I'm a, like I said, like from an early age, I've been into art, so I'm always looking at paintings and composition and you know, how paintings work, and you know, in teaching, that's what I was doing a lot of that, explaining to students how paintings work. So there's a few tips and tricks, and from painting for, you know, ever since I was quite young, then I feel like I can use technical things and little devices, mechanisms to kind of create a composition. So in my head, starting certainly, you know, I started with Oscar Charleston. He was the first outfielder voted in at the top here. So I've got him up there and he's looking into the canvas this way. So that just helps me set up the rest of the painting. I know that he's going to kind of act as a mechanism which will push the viewer, you guys, to looking over there. And then hopefully I've got somebody on this side, which I have now, which is Pop Lloyd, who's looking a bit more straight on, but a little bit in as well, which kind of brings you back in. So what I'm trying to do is try and make it so that there's a continuation. There's a kind of a relationship between all the elements that go in. But it isn't necessarily easy to do, and especially with these guys, because there's not so many photos and the quality of the photos aren't as good. You know, if I'm looking for photos of Babe Ruth, then there's, you know, lots. But of course that speaks about the history as well. So there's, you know, there's reasons why these things don't exist anymore. So it's very different. And there's certainly not with these guys. I'd say there's not as many photos of them in action as you'd get with Babe Ruth or I don't know, Ty Cobb or, you know, whoever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you talked about the power of color before. What sort of things would you teach your students when it comes down to that sort of thing?
To do with color? Well, I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's huge. You can if you want it, I mean, a general very, very basic one is that if you want to grab attention, then you can use a hot color, like a red, a yellow, an orange. Cool colors tend to recede. So, and also, like, I can play around with the depth of these players using the tone and the detail as well. If you add more detail into something, come close to our attention. If there's something in the background that's not so well lit, or it's more blurry, it's going to sit back. So again, I can start playing around with those sorts of things, but it's kind of hard to do that when you don't know the overall composition or what's going to be in it exactly. But you can kind of, I think with a bit of experience and looking at enough paintings, you can kind of work out, okay, you can have a rough kind of strategy, and then you've just, but that, it was always part of the fun, because I never knew, I've never, it's not a normal way, or it's not, certainly not for me, a normal way to do a painting. Normally, I'd be at a ballpark, I've got the ballpark in front of me, and I kind of work out how I want the painting to sit on the canvas and, you know, start adding things in. And prior to that, even then, you'd usually have a composition or a design, or you'd, you know, somehow you'd have everything you kind of need. There might be a few things that change on the way. But this is like, you know, you start off with one thing, one person you know that's going in, the first person who's voted in, and then after that, it's, you don't know who's coming next. So it's just a matter of, right, okay, what's the way I can try and get this together. So there's a load to it, though. I mean, it's I mean, I can't give you a short answer, because it's I feel like it's years and years and years, and you have to do it. I mean, I feel like it's a lot of you practicing it and doing it yourself is really the only way to learn it and to really understand it fully, you know.
Okay, cool. That's cool. What in your opinion then is integral to the work of an artist?
Say again, sorry, mate.
What in your opinion is integral to the work of an artist?
I think you've got to mean it. I think you have to mean it. It's got to have if you're not into it, then don't do it. And I feel like that with that in everything in life. Like if you're not fussed, then don't bother. And I feel like if you're going to paint, and if you're going to be an artist, or you're going to do this sort of work, then you've got to really mean it. You've got to mean it 110%. You can't, like, I can't, but again, maybe that's just me, but I just feel like you can't do it half. Like, it just won't work. And people see it in the work. Like, I don't think it works if you just half do it. And there's a lot of pitfalls on the way with it. You know, of course, there's you know, you need to get paid. You want to get paid. You need to survive. But if you do it just solely for the money, then again, I feel like you're going to trip yourself up. It's got to be because you really love it and you really want to do it. I mean, I love just painting, and I love like you can't really see in the screen here because it's a bit blurry there, I guess. But you know, I love the qualities of paint. Like, paint is you know, this material that you can mix and change the colors and change the tones. You can make it thicker, you can make it thinner. There's all these beautiful qualities to it, which you can just play around with, and you can mold and you can shape. And I can take, you know, this tube of blue paint or black paint, and I can make it look like, you know, Cool Papa Bell or something. And it's that sort of thing of just being able to shape and create and mold. You know, I find that quite fascinating, and I love it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that amazes the most. Just looking at the work that you've done and looking at the piece in the background. So this is probably at the point, if you listen to this on the audio and the podcast, I'd probably say if you get a chance to watch this on YouTube, just to have a look at Andy's work, because he has got it on display in the background, it's well worth doing. But it's the one thing that's always amazed me about art is how something as simple as like a blob of paint can be turned into something like that, and it's the skill that's involved in it is incredible. It's why it's art, I suppose. It's just mind-blowing.
It can be turned into anything. That's the thing I love about it, is that you can do anything with it. You can do it. You can make a figurative painting. You can make an abstract painting. You can be any age, effectively. You know, it's wonderful.
Yeah. How would you best describe your style? What like if you just describe yourself as an artist, how would you describe it?
I mean, I'm relatively traditional in my approach, I guess. You know, I'm quite technical, I'd say. But I always think that especially like the ballpark stuff, probably more than this, is a bit more impressionistic, expressionistic. You know, using color to express emotions. The impressionists like Monet and Manet and Degas and people like that, you know, capturing the moment, and that's always a big part of my work when I'm outside painting. I'd say with these works, it's more studio based. You're building up this piece over time. And I was when I was a art student, or a young art student, I remember 14, 15, seeing Lucian Freud. I think he's the grandson, I'm not sure it's great-grandson, but of Sigmund Freud. And if you see his paintings, the texture of the paint, he always talked about like the paint being like skin. And that's kind of how I feel like I go to here, where the brush marks and the texture is really quite essential to it, to make the face is really a face. It's not just a painted surface. I want to make it actually really into a cheek and really have some feel to it.
Do you use any particular? Are you oil paint or are you acrylic? What's your preferred?
This is oil. I mean, around me here, I've got oils and acrylics, and I do a lot of watercolor and gouache. I mean, I draw a little bit as well, but I do whatever. I guess it's whatever is needed for the project or the thing, because oils take a good couple of days to dry at the very least, just to be touch dry, I guess. So you can't be, and I was, but you can't really be traveling around too much with oils. But I have done it. But it's, you get paint on the rental car and on your clothes and other fans and whoever else is near you. So it's a bit of a disaster. It can be. But yeah, I mean, whatever I need. If I'm in my sketchbooks, then it's watercolors mostly, because they dry quick and you can fold it up and you can move on. But it varies on the subject and also a little bit my mood, but mostly kind of depends on the practical reasons. But oil paint, for me, you can't beat. I mean, it's got the longevity and there's a lush quality to it. So I love that as a medium.
What do you enjoy doing the most?
Probably oils. But watercolor, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, Matt. Like, I love using oils, but if you can give me a scene or something that inspires me, and you can give me a pencil or a bit of chalk or whatever it is, I'll be all right. That'll be fine.
Do you ever do anything like with paint, like get a feel of it before you start using it? I'm not like finger painting, but like, is that an important thing to sort of know, like the thickness and the quality of the materials you're working with, or just like bleep it, on it goes?
I guess you probably have that feeling through your brush. Yeah. I when you're mixing the paint, or when you're getting the paint, or when I'm putting it on the canvas, then I can then start to control. It's all generally, I feel like you start the painting off, and then you have to start correcting all the mistakes you've made, and you're just pushing paint around, and it's that art of getting the right. You just want to get the right movement or the right like stroke of the paint where it just works, and you might spend, I don't know, a good few hours and it just won't work, and then all of a sudden it's just there and it's just how you wanted it to be. Or it just sits well with the rest of the painting. Sometimes you have a really great piece, but the rest of the painting, you might do something really, really well, but it just doesn't work with the rest of the painting. So you have to kill that bit off, and you have to rework that bit. So it's technically I think that's why you never stop learning with it. There's never an end point, I don't think.
Yeah. How do you keep on top of your game then?
Just keep doing it. I mean, you can't talk about it. You can't just talk about it. I mean, you have to do it. If you want to be good, then you just got to do it. You've got to do it, and you also got to look at artists. I've always, I'm surrounded by my books here, and you've got to keep looking at, you've got to keep looking at other artists. Keep looking at Picasso. How did he make those lines? Like, you just got to keep doing that sort of thing. And finding new artists, finding new people that inspire you, new ways of working, being open, I guess, as well. But all of those sorts of things.
That's cool. So with your stadiums and your portraits, which you prefer doing most, stadiums or your portraits?
They're both good. I'm trying to think, what would I prefer? I like both. They're very different, Matt. I mean, I love the stadium work. We've talked about it before. I love being in the stadium. I love being at an event. I love that atmosphere. I love the noise. I love the smells. I love all that sort of thing. When I'm in here, it's a small environment that's surrounded me is my books and my other easels and my other paintings and my music and my podcasts. British Baseball podcast, very good one. And I've got this environment that I can control, and I've got and it's mine, and it can be very, very quiet. It can be very, very noisy. It can be very messy. It can be very tidy. It can be whatever I want it to be. And it's a very different approach. It really is. It's completely different. Like this, we're talking about, this has been pretty quick, and it's been, I don't know, 6 days or something, and it'll probably take, I don't know, it's going to take another 5 days at least. I mean, this is going quick for one of these paintings. This is going quick. I'm kind of trying to push it for this event. But whereas the stadium paintings, it's done in one shot, it's done in one sitting at the games, and it's such a different approach. And there it's all wet on wet. It's all the paint's wet. Here I can let the paint dry. I can scrape it off a bit if I want. I can go back over areas. this isn't all finished yet. I mean, there's still, Ray Dandridge still needs some work on him, but there's bits down here where you can see Oscar Charleston's legs kind of coming through the shirt of Cool Papa Bell. And, I might paint over that, but again, I'm not sure. I kind of like the idea that, the more I've learned about these players, the more, the experts have talked about how all these guys are related to each other in terms of they mentored each other, they played on the same teams. They're obviously very, very close to each other. So I feel like the history of these guys is so like woven together. And again, I kind of like how that works in the paint, So there's decisions that I have to make as I go along.
Yeah. Has there been any player that you sort of really wanted to be on there that's not been on there yet for either like the story's been really good or you just like the way that it looks for the painting?
There's definitely it's not that I wanted one more than the other, but there's certainly been players that I thought, wow, their story was fantastic, or they're really interesting, or I feel like there's Chino Smith, and he was outstanding. When you talk about him or you look at I've got his stats here. So his slugging was 659, but he died very early. He died at about 31 years old. So he only played, I think it was for about 7 years, but he was superb. I mean, superb. The panel of experts who I was talking to were saying about how good he was. And he would have been he would have been easily in the Hall of Fame if it hadn't probably been for his early death. But so you have players like that. But I'm just glad that we've had the chance on the conversation to talk about him and hopefully, I think you might know his name now. And I just feel like, well, that's one more person who knows his story, knows his name, knows about this incredible player. There's the Cuban players as well that we've talked about, like Martin Dehiguio, who I was in Cuba last year and I loved it. And it was really cool to have some Cuban players coming on the painting or to be suggested for the painting. And to hear more about their history and how they got from Cuba into the Negro Leagues. So it's good just to for my knowledge, and I feel like for the history, hopefully it just broadens it and opens it up even more.
Yeah. What is it then that the Negro Leagues mean to you?
I think it's a lesson, isn't it? I think there's a big story there and there's a big lesson. It's important that these stories are remembered, and you think, in the political climate, even maybe at the moment, you feel like, there's so many stories within these players' lives and what they had to endure and go through. And I think it's really important to remember those things and talk about them and understand them and hopefully learn from them. I think that's to me, I feel like, it was, you got some incredible players, but the situations and the fact that it was the way it was in some ways like very sad, of course. So yeah, I think that's it. I think it's the stories, it's the lessons we can learn, and hopefully we're better for them. That would be my hope.
Yeah, listen to the Sabr experts talk. Have you found yourself any new favorite players from what they've told you?
Well, to be honest, all of these guys, and everyone we talk about, it's all, there's I didn't realize how good some of these guys were, and how highly rated they were. And I think, who is it, Pop Lloyd, Babe Ruth said, Pop Lloyd up here, Babe Ruth said he was the best player he ever saw. And it's things like that which you just think, wow, like that's Babe Ruth saying that. And then you've got the Bill James analytics, who he said that Oscar Charleston was the fourth best player ever, behind Willie Mays and Babe Ruth and Honus Wagner. Chino Smith we talked about, but there's it's just fascinating to me. It's just another gold mine of information and intrigue and stories, and it's an incredible learning experience.
Yeah. How did you get involved in the project?
I got a message from the coordinator, Mr. Tad Richardson, at Curveball Keepsakes on Instagram, so check that out. So he got in touch and he kind of told me about it, and I was in. But I wasn't sure I was going to do one of these paintings, because I really wanted to have somebody who had the knowledge to be able to share the knowledge and educate, because I didn't want it to be coming from me, because I don't know, or didn't know much at all, and I'm still learning. I've still got a huge amount to learn. I still don't know much, so I wanted to have that support, where there was somebody who actually knew what they were talking about, kind of telling us about these players, because I just didn't think it would be right otherwise. So to begin with, I didn't know if that would be possible, and at times it didn't look like it was going to be possible, and it's all come around, it's all working, and it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I know what you mean there about the But when I was asked if I'd like to do some interviewing for it, I was like, yes, definitely, because I don't know enough, and I'm kind of embarrassed by it. But at the same time, I sort of, well, my sort of, I'm going to say something really daft now. My specialist field, and I'm doing little quotation marks, is British baseball, and I've never really sort of ventured that deep into the history of the Major League and the Negro Leagues. I was aware of it, but it was not something that I was like actively seeking out.
Yeah.
But now I've had a taster.
Yeah.
I'm at the buffet table of knowledge, and it's like I want more courses. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about it, is that you can't help but want to know more about these stories of these athletes. And so for me, it's become this thing was like I didn't really want to get involved because I was a bit like I don't know the players, but so that's why I came with the angle like with what I do with my show.
Yeah, right.
I can ask people and I can learn on the job.
Right.
And I'm really glad that I did, because some of the things that I'm finding out is just like, yeah. And these players do deserve to have the time in the sun. I mean, for me, it was I knew like of Papa Bell and Satchel Paige, but that was like literally it. And it's like I couldn't name anybody else. And now, like you said before, I've got all these videos at my disposal, and there's so much more out there now, and it's documented. And I said your videos will stand the test of time because it's not dated. It's all accurate information from experts, and it's really interesting as well. I'll make sure that I put links to the channel in the show notes so people can watch it. So even if you've not had a chance to vote on Andy's work, you can go back there and just look at the amazing stories and get involved. So it's really cool. So let's go back to you for a couple of minutes. Who have been your biggest influences in your work?
Well, kind of the people that I talked about before, really. I mean, Lucian Freud's, all the Impressionists, or not all the Impressionists, but Monet and Van Gogh and
Harry Enfield.
I was thinking about Rembrandt earlier. Like, there's a very famous painting by Rembrandt of it's called The Night Watch, and it's I was going to look at it before this because I've been thinking about it the last few days, but it's a whole group of a night watch in Amsterdam in the mid 1600s, I guess, and there must be about, I don't know, 20 or faces, individual portraits in there. And the way it's constructed, the way it comes together, and the way it works, the way that Rembrandt uses the light and the shadows to create this drama and all this, there's this is why you can't stop looking at art, because there's all the answers are there. You've got to look back at it and find out, right, how do you control these things?
I think I might know the answers because I spoke to you about it before. But are there any real life situations that have inspired you?
In terms of painting?
Yeah. And so the example I can think of it with the real life situations that comes to my mind is your stadiums.
Yeah.
But, have you got a favourite piece from your stadium work?
Well, I think talking about inspiration or talking about that thing is that's quite peculiar in some ways, because I feel like what inspires me may not inspire other people. We all have our own thing where, you look at my paintings, you look at somebody else's paintings, it's going to be different subject matter. It's going to be presented in a different way. The colors are going to be different. Like there's so many different ways you can do it. And I feel like for me, there's always been something to do with atmosphere, or this communal gatherings, or this event, this sense for an event, or I've always been really fascinated with like stories in paintings. And I've talked about on Backflips the Ambassadors by Hans Holbein the Younger, painted in the 1500s. That painting, like the stories just within that painting, the little secret hidden meanings and the little messages that the artist puts in there, and the stories about the two ambassadors in the painting, for me, those are like, I find those things inspiring. So that's again what I feel like my work goes between those kind of two avenues. But it varies from person to person, but yeah, it is that if a stadium or some sort of event and people are getting together and there's an atmosphere, I love it.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier as well that finding new artists is always like a refreshing thing to see. Has there been any piece of work that you've seen recently that you've come across and has been blown away by?
You know what? Actually, there was a piece that there's a few. I mean, there's a few. I mean, I'm always looking at stuff. So I mean, There's an old art critic, Matthew Collins, who makes during the lockdown he's been doing some pencil drawings. I love his work, and they're very much about art history and kind of fictional kind of art history gatherings. And his pieces of work that I've seen recently, like I love looking at his work. They to me they're looking at all the myths of an artist and of the art world and culture and what it means. And I love looking at his work. Tim Stoner is another artist I'm a huge fan of, the way he paints, the way he works. So every day I'm looking at stuff. Tom Pringles today, he sent me a picture by Cecilia Brown, and I love it. It was fantastic, a very abstract piece, but the skill needed to produce a piece of artwork like that is phenomenal, and it's just beautiful. And every day I'm trying to find, I'm looking at stuff and getting just, I always feel it just drip feeds in. The more you don't necessarily, it's not like you just digest it all in one mouthful. It's like it just seeps in slowly through your skin, and it's stored somewhere in your body. Hopefully it comes out your hand as your brush.
That's cool. Is there anyone that you've not painted yet, or anything you haven't painted yet that you'd love to do? Maybe either live or from photographs?
More ballparks would be number one, but that's gonna be in the future, hopefully. No, I just want to keep going with what I'm doing. I want to I want to travel more and paint more baseball and baseball culture around the world and sports culture. Lately in the UK, you might have seen I'm doing some things to do with like Sunday football, grassroots football. Of course, I saw you at the Battle of Britain baseball event a couple of weeks ago in Waltham Abbey, and I want to just paint more. I want to see like how do we relate to this game, and what does it mean to us, and what does it mean to be together and with other people and share an experience and compete and on and on and on.
Yeah, I think one of the amazing things for actually me being able to see you paint live was just how not simple you made it seem, but like just the way you crafted it, like just there and then, like just popping over every now and then, like with a egg sandwich or whatever weird thing you're eating. Oh, disgusting. Sorry, egg sandwich lovers, but it's only one type of egg sandwich and it's fried with bacon. But you didn't pay for it. See, it lost me train of thought now. This is why I shouldn't waffle and try and be funny. I said a joke before and it went right over everyone's head, and I feel like a plank. But just being able to see you do what you do, and just in intervals of going over and seeing how it develops and how it just expands was awesome. I'd love to see you do a few more of the British grounds, and that's not just an excuse to try and get up to Manchester for another Chilwell bit of a session.
No, that's on the radar. I've done, I don't know, 9 different countries or whatever. I think I've done MLB London in this country, and of course the Waltham Abbey one the other day. And of course I need to get to the others in this country now and see baseball here. So it's there's a lot of painting still to do.
There is indeed. Andy, that sort of brings me to the end of my questions, and in show tradition, I leave the last word open to the guest. So the floor's all yours, mate. Anything you want to say or shout out or promote before we bounce?
No, not really. Just thank you very much for having me on. Thank you for listening. And if people want to follow the progress, they can see that on my Twitter page, which is @AndyB_is_an_artist. And
your website?
Website AndyBrownStadiums.com. But you should be able to track me down, I'm sure, if you try hard enough.
Yeah, we'll be able to find you. I'll retweet some bits and pieces for you there. As always, Andy, pleasure talking to you. It's like I only spoke to you before, but
thank you, man.
Always a pleasure to have you on. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. You too. Take care.
Oh, before we part as well, dugoutclassics.com. That's how you can get involved in the prize draw for some of the stuff.
Oh, yes.
And so www.dugoutclassics.com. Right, mate, I'll chat to you in a bit.
Nice one. Cheers, mate.
Ta-ra.